right, just going right into Chapter 5 after recording Chapter 4. Just want to remind that I've actually gotten to I've finished Chapter 13, so I've finished actually the first 2 books of this third book, so it's split into 4 parts. I will try not to talk about stuff that happens later on after this chapter too much. But I want to be able to speak freely, and I want to, so there's just a little bit of that. If you've already read the books, you shouldn't care too much. If you are doing a read along, I would say maybe read up to at least to the end of chapter 13. If you really want to get things without any kind of hints towards what happens later on. But I've really loved it so far. Now we get back to perhaps my favorite little squad of people. That is Lady Envy, Talk, who, we'll get to Talk. We'll get to what happens with that boy. We get to Tool, and we get to the Segula. I know I did a reaction video of the dinos, which, we haven't even gotten to that part yet. But the dino types or whatever they are, but it's actually the Segula. I think I get the most excited reading about these weird kind of hierarchical Segula, who everything is about where they rank. And it's not that they're just bullies in fighting each other. Like, they don't care about Talk because he's not a threat. But they fight their way up this ranking, even if they're going to get their butts kicked. And it sounds like, you don't even have to be a part of the clan. It's more of like a society of the baddest fighters around. So we have this group, and they are still on their way through this area going north. So we have most of the people either on kind of the northwest, going towards Kapistan, going towards the Panian Empire. Sorry, I'll try not to make I need a filter pop, I guess, for one of these things. But they are on that side, and Talk and this other group is coming towards the south, going north. And as was promised, Talk is helping him with making tools. And even though he has undead hands, Tool, I don't know if I said it was Talk that was helping him, but Tool is helping him. And even though he has these undead hands, it is clear that they are an artisan's hands. They are very, very skilled. He takes this volcanic rock and strikes 3 long kind of shards off of it, and he's going to make some tools out of those 3 long ones, and out of the remainder he's going to make some other tools. And they so cool. They call him the Talan Imas are called stone swords to people. And those stone swords are also imbued to not break. Now, let me make sure I get this right, because it's interesting how some of the things they will go about. We will get from this scene that Talk is quite nervous around sorcery. But again, we get this, and I love this. It's not so much because of his own experience, but because he's been told that. He's been told to fear sorcery. You can think of the other ways that we have kind of taken on the prejudices of people before us, whether that's, that could be in any number of things. And so he also has this prejudice of sorcery because he feels like, it replaces actual technological advancement of certain things. Think of the pyramids being built. I don't know where you stand on that. It's not about that, but there are some engineering feats from our ancient history that is incredible. with this stonemasonry work of engineering marvels, and assuming that it's not aliens and stuff, assuming that we did that, and we didn't do that with this other kind of advanced technology other than just really advanced engineering of some sort. And again, I don't want to sound ignorant on this, but you know what I mean. It's almost like some kind of technology does take us a different way, kind of like a calculator when we were all growing up, at least for me, being in school in the 90s, thinking, well, we did have calculators back then, so maybe a bad example, but some things, I know my math skills, my basic foundational math skills probably weren't the same as my parents and grandparents. There are things that they worked on a more foundational level because they didn't have the tools to help out. And think of now, we have AI, and what's that going to do? But this is part of the prejudice. They kind of look at sorcery the same way. Again, I don't want to go on a big tangent about that, but I think that's very, very interesting. Tool uses the obsidian to make crushing tools. He talks about the stone. Stone is not just stone, like Talk would say, but there's stone. Some stone is sand, and some stone is water. That's how they kind of differentiate it. Edged tools are made of the stone that is water. Crushing stone, which I believe is more of like the... Man, I wish there's the sandstone, there's the igneous, metamorphic. I don't remember all the differences. I'm an idiot. But the crushing stone is more of that sandstone, as long as it's hard enough to do so, which I think is cool. And it's not really a part of the plot, but it's in there, and so be it. They talk about Lady Envy as once being a companion of Alamander Rake, and that her and Kaladin Brood and Alamander Rake and a sorceress who eventually ascended to become the Queen of Dreams used to kind of chill together. But then Kaladin Brood took his own solitary path and was not seen for centuries. Alamander Rake and Lady Envy remained companions, which I think is interesting. And they write, it is said they parted argumentatively, those two. Wonder what that would look like. In the days before the Ascendants gathered to chain the Fallen One. Rake joined in the effort, and the lady did not. Which makes me... There are times when my eyebrow definitely goes up around this lady. Which I think she is super cool. But I'm not sure about her motivations. And it's interesting because how did she make the Segula her slaves? And talk even, whenever this lady smiles, it's like people just flinch and are kind of almost magically drawn to her and unable to resist it. I find that very interesting. And even the Segula, I first thought that, well, doesn't that mean she's just like the top swordsman type? And she's really like the chief of the Segula? But no, I think she just kind of winks and smiles and they're hers. Sorta. I might be getting that totally wrong, but sounds like she's more than just a 10 out of 10, but she's actually got some magic stuff going on to make that happen. And let me just see, because there's this cool part. Right, they're talking about the Segula, how their communication is mostly nonverbal, and Tool, of course, doesn't yield to anyone, even the Segula, even ones that could probably kick his butt. He kicked the butt of this one, the lowest ranking one, but it sounds like that third one. As cool as Tool is, and he is cool, it sounds like this third one, Mock, could really mess up Tool. Now, there's supposed to be a legendary Segula with an unmarked mask, which I think means he hasn't had to mark his mask with his own blood, I'm guessing. But that's cool. That's cool. I want to meet that guy. Who's going to be the one that has to take on that dude? I hope it's... Here's my top 5, who I would hope that to be. I kind of would want that to be Tool. Talk, I have some other things in mind for him. It seems like, even Alamander Rake wandered through their... Alamander Rake is cold. He's awesome. Walked through their little Main Street community and had to fight a bunch off. Sounds like even he wouldn't be number 1. Who's going to be number 1? I would want Captain Perrin. I don't think there's a chance at that, though. Maybe if he had some kind of sorcery or Picker. I think that would be cool if Picker was one with his torques. But I don't think that's going to happen either. Now, the Segula are there to punish. They're kind of this punitive squad to punish the invaders of their island. The priests of Panion who went there seeking to convert. And I think that's interesting. And the Segula were not happy about that, as it sounds like not only just them, but most high priests and whoever are not too happy about the proselyting of these priests of Panion. And Senu, just before leaving this scene, I think is so cool. Senu's only 14. This lowest of this squad of Segula that are there with them. He's number 11. No, that might not be true. I might have read that wrong. It says he's an 11th level initiate. So this 14-year-old who's, I can't remember if he's ranked. Was he number 7? That's not right. He might actually be a lower level one, maybe, now that I'm thinking about it, but he's just the 11th level. I don't think that means he's number 11, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, sounds like there's more dueling going on, and the Tool was fighting with... Who's he fighting with? Fighting with one of the Segula. Not with the middle one. Not with Mock or Senu, I believe the middle one. And this is when they talk about Alamander Rake, who knew nothing about the inhabitants of the Segula area, walked right in, taking human form and fashioning a mask for himself, and locked it right through the Main Street's thoroughfare. Being naturally arrogant, he showed no deference to any who crossed his path. And there was this ferocity about him. And he has a nickname called Black Sword. Black Sword, Mock says, holds the 7th position. And they demand that he come and claim the mask that is prepared for him as that of the 7th position. Which is, it sounds like even Mock would. This Segula, which you can't imagine someone taking on Alamander Rake 1-1. But it sounds like this Mock would do some work. Now, the tempers raise, and Tool has really messed up this Segula. So now he's fought 2 of them. First, he pancaked the one, Senu, and now this other one has a broken wrist, broken ribs, half dozen blows to his head, and the Lady Envy is sick of it. And she strikes Mock in the head. When she's gonna heal him with sorcery, he says, no, he must not be healed with sorcery. She says, servants do not make demands of me. And she's the one who really calls the shots here, which is cool. Now, let's go to the next scene. And this is cool. It's kind of a short scene. It has Whiskey Jack speaking to Mallet about Perrin's affliction, and that his mortal flesh has the taint of ascendant blood. And they, even though maybe he hasn't ascended yet, as far as they're concerned, it is as if he is just right around the corner. And that makes him unpredictable and very powerful. Now they go back to speaking about Silver Fox and this nature which is inside her, at least this dual nature of Night Chill and Tattersail. I don't know if there's more than that going on. Sometimes I think that's the case and sometimes I don't, but I haven't gone to any kind of resources to get things figured out. This is totally my own confused mind going through this. But they say that their Night Chill, it sounds like there's been many Night Chills, which I don't know if that means that's like a title, or if this Night Chill just keeps being reborn and reborn and reborn, and that's the source of the depth that is within Silver Fox, even though I tend to think it's this Night Chill might be a name for something else going on. Or it sounds like there's this elder goddess or something that is Night Chill, or I don't know. See, I go down these tangents and you're hearing me think out loud, and I resist putting this on the internet sometimes because even though I say these things, I don't necessarily, you know what I mean. I'm just speaking out loud. But there's this source of depth, and remember, Calor is looking within Silver. Oh yeah, we'll get there. Sorry. We'll get there. But there's this source of depth, and they are fearful of Night Chill and her Warren, which is Rashan, the Warren of Darkness. So they talk about the crippled god who has declared war, or they think about who's thinking this here, just to make sure, because I have it highlighted. I think it's maybe, who's this? I think this is Whiskey Jack. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Crippled God has declared war on the gods, on the Warrens, and we will get to that. Keep facing Perrin in the right direction, Whiskey Jack says. Shove him when the opportunity arises. Quick, Ben, find out all you can about Night Chill. Mallet, explain about Perrin to Spindle. Now they are going to this debrief, which is one of... There's some really, really, really cool stuff that happens in this. And Whiskey Jack goes towards the tent that's been provided for Dujek One Arm. He enters the tent, and there's a few things that they want to go over. 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever things. Talk about Alamander Rake agreeing to come or to be a part of this. They talk about, or they mention is the army ready to leave Pale. They mention Silver Fox. They'll mention her a few times. And that Silver Fox, Tattersail, being kind of a solid ally before, needs to come to the forefront. They mention not knowing enough about the enemy, which as a reader at this point, we're just dying to know more. One of the things that is so cool about the way Steven Erikson writes is, especially with introducing new cities, but also with this Panion Domain, but introducing new cities, sometimes, like with Capistan, here at this book, we kind of start to find out that we find some minimal things happening about the workings within Capistan. And then we're just kind of left to our own devices to kind of imagine in our heads for the time being and let that seed kind of germinate so that when we get to Capistan, our subconscious already kind of has been working on developing some of this stuff. It doesn't just go right into a city and then just through a whole bunch of descriptions talk about it. He really, really is good at providing some subtext, a lot of subtext leading up to it, so that when we get there, it feels like we are already familiar with them, even though we aren't. And wow, the Panion Domain. We'll get there though. It's about they talk about Quickband needing to initiate contact with the mercenary company in Capistan. As well, let's see. They talk about the other people that are in their newfound group of allies. The Mont Regulars, who are the ones that steal stuff, who stole that table originally. The Rivi, the Barghast, who are on that other side. The Tistandi are unequaled. But still, it is recognized that Brood still needs them. And then the number 7 point, at least on mine, is Calor. Calor, who is this king. This undead, or not undead, but he just keeps going. This ancient king who's been cursed with the pains of mortal life, but is still just around. And then there's Kaladin Brood. He's the real shaved knuckle, which is like the real kind of loaded dice in all of this. That has a hammer that could awaken Burn. But I don't know if that's such a good idea yet. And we have to hope that Brood chooses the right thing and keeps wanting to protect Silver Fox. At least that's what Whiskey Jack says, and I can't help but agree. So they kind of just lay all those out, and I think that is mainly for me, or mainly for the reader. I mean, obviously everything's for the reader, but it really nicely puts everything into place. A lot of the things that are on our mind, but that also doesn't really include a lot of the other stuff that is kind of more than just the Panion Domain, which I think is so cool. That the stakes are in one place with the Panion Domain, but there's so much more to that. And Whiskey Jack, to end this scene, just restates that he will not stand by to let anyone kill Silver Fox, no matter who she is, no matter what resides in her. But then we get the golden question, and it's something I've been asking myself up to this point, and I'm glad someone brings it up. And it's the Maiba brings it up, and that is, what if Calor's right? What if Calor's right? You know, he's a psycho. Cold psycho. Rather than give up anything, rather than have a nickel fall into someone else's pocket, he would rather just burn it all. That's a metaphor, I guess. Well, yeah. But rather than give up an inch, rather than give up his kingdom, he'd rather burn it down. But even then, what if he's right? And I honestly don't know. But I tend not to agree with psychos who murder their whole kingdom and make a throne of their bones. So, moving on. Or I guess not really totally moving on, because what will happen, again, I've mentioned this before, but what will happen when she has the Talan Imas at her fingertips? What if she kind of gets ticked off at someone that, you know, I don't mind if she does something awful to Calor, but what if she turns on other people that we like? And I'm not sure I want that so much. I find it interesting. Corlat brings up again that there's this secret that hovers between the two of them, between Calor and Silver Fox, and within the reader as well. We know that there's this extra history going way back, where I assume that means that the lady, the elder goddess, is with them as well. As if this is this longest of rivalries. Not, I think that's really the wrong term, but you know what I mean. They have seen flashes of darkness, even within Silver Fox, and that frightens. That, you know, there is potential for danger there. All right, we get to some of these deliberations that start to happen, and Kaladin Brood is there, and I like how this kind of goes down. I know I mentioned this. If you have been following, in some of this is in my first book kind of review, but this is going in more detail. Krupp is there, and he is there as the representative of Master Baruch, but not really, because they haven't made that arrangement, and he's just saying, well, it's unspoken. I am here, and we know that the real reason he is there is, well, it may not even be the real reason he's there, but a part of the reason he's there is to get them to use this company to supply the caravan of to supply the army going towards Kapistan. Most reliable, and he's going to try to get their way. And even though they're like, come on, Krupp, you shouldn't be here, it sounds like he does make good points. And he does bring up that they probably would be the best one to be there. Call is there. And Estrasian de Arl, which I think is Shalice's dad, right? But they are the ruling council of Darujistan. So they are there. And yeah, we go and they talk about some of the issues and where they're planning on going, staying north of the river as they march towards Kapistan, and then we can skip through some of this because I've already talked about that. But it sounds like he's making some great points. Now we get to Crone in the next thing. It starts with Crone, and I'm starting to love Crone. Really. And I didn't think I would have, because this great matriarch, Raven, is just so... I mean, I don't think she's super interesting so far, even though she's had interesting stuff she's done. But as far as being emotionally attached to Crone, I haven't, but I am starting to. And I can't remember if it's from this scene, but let me just peek through this to make sure. She is kind of listening in on Spindle, Hedge, Blend, and Picker, I believe. And they're still talking about this table. And she's kind of listening in. I don't think they know about her yet, but they are talking about this new card. And Spindle has some things to know about it. And knows that this new card has a new fixed influence. And it's kind of like the glue holding the rest of the cards together. A new ascendant. Unaffiliated, I believe, is what they said. But it hasn't woken up yet. So the way I see it, it's like all these cards are different bricks of a building. And I use this analogy a lot with other things. And I probably have here. But it's almost like this card is like the mortar that goes within, kind of between the bricks and things like that. But it's almost like, it's the master of all the other cards, or is that the thing, the lead or the king? Doesn't really matter. We start at the next scene, and we get some with Perrin, and is walking towards Maiba or standing there, doesn't matter. And she mentions, at least for the sake of our own curiosity, she mentions that the Tattersail part of her, of Silver Fox, has been stirred awake. So that's good. And Perrin is searching for this lost table that has been found, or that has been taken. And I believe Crone brings him towards it. It doesn't really matter that much, but they go towards Spindle. Perrin does. And that's when it dawns on Spindle that it is Perrin. It is Perrin's face that is on this unaffiliated card. Something that, so cool. I thought if anyone is going to ascend, I thought that maybe Perrin would become, and I say, sorry, I say that so much. I thought that he was going to ascend to be the new Shadow Throne maybe, but he has something even cooler in line for him. Something that he doesn't want to do, but they are catching on that it is him. And they just can't believe it. Or at least Spindle's like, oh my goodness. Now, next scene. So, the next scene is short again. And I'll just mention that this is when Perrin is given the task to walk, to accompany Trots to the Whiteface clan, which is kind of, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, but he is going to go there in order to kind of recruit, in a sense, or this temporary alliance, to recruit them to aid in the relief of Capistan. And he's supposed to not be in Trots's way regarding the negotiations. Trots is the one who has been given the reins. So don't step in his way. Don't step in his way. And also, of note, Alamander Rake has arrived. And this next scene, what an entrance by Alamander Rake. The Tistandi are all gathered outside the next morning, I believe, and they're all kind of in this circle. You look up and there's this massive dragon, which I assume that they can all turn into dragons, but maybe I'm just way off. Some of these guys can turn into dragons, and Alamander Rake, this black dragon, comes swirling down, lands on the ground. There's all this smoke and or dust or whatever. At least that's how I kind of imagine it. And when it all fades, there's Alamander Rake, this cold, awesome dude. And he's just standing in the middle. And he makes quite, that is quite an entrance. And it sparks fear in the eyes, obviously, of Calor. And they also have this kind of, they have a history together. And immediately, Calor tries to convince Alamander Rake that Silver Fox is to be killed right away. trapper. Killer and trapper within your sword. I don't think he says it in quite those terms, but this is dangerous. And Kaladin Brood basically tells him to knock it off. In fact, he is quite clear, Kaladin Brood is, that Dragnapur is not to be unsheathed within his camp. Of note as well, there's a lot of things I mark, and I mark them wondering if they're going to mean something later because they just kind of raise my eyebrow. There's this Artanthos, was one that was brought up as the standard bearer, and Silver Fox doesn't really trust him because it sounds like he hasn't had that name for very long. There's something more to him, and there is a power swirling about that man. Who's the one thinking this right now? That is, I believe that's just the Maiba thinking that. Anyway, we're getting this scene from her perspective, and on one side there's the Tistandi, there's Kaladin Brood and Kalor, and which is so strange, at least when we're reading this at the time. Kaladin Brood is over there, the Tistandi, Kalor, and now we have Alamander Rake in the middle, kind of posturing, trying to kind of see, looking at Dujek and Whiskey Jack and looking, and the Rivi people, and looking at the bridge burners and the Malazans, and there's this thing where Alamander Rake kind of has this sorcery that just oozes kind of from him, swallowing Silver Fox to try to find out really the secrets that she holds. And she kind of scans him and then goes for his sword. And I thought all heck was going to break loose here. And it kind of does. But it sounds like Silver Fox is furious. The Maiba can kind of detect Night Chill there, Tattersail, and another. And she thinks, is this Bellerdan? Is this someone else? I have my own ideas of who I think it is. But there is something that she does not want other people there to discover about her. And then that's when the table goes flying out of the tent, spinning up in the air, and dangling above everyone with Krupp just dangling from it again. Krupp has been observing it or whatever. And that's when Captain Perrin, in the place where he is, talking with Picker and whoever is there with him, he kind of just blinks out of there. And it just surprises all of them. This is one of the coolest parts in this book so far, even though that's just up to this part. And Quick Ben is needing to be found because it's like Perrin has just been snatched up. And then he wakes up and he's found in this circle with Alamander Rake and Kalor both just staring at him with their weapons drawn. Which I don't know. I don't exactly understand what would happen if Alamander Rake understood everything about Perrin and that he has walked through his sword and out. I don't understand exactly, other than it doesn't sound like that would be a good thing. But very cool. And then he blinks out again. He kind of just falls asleep or blinks out, or who knows. Very cool, though. And we go back to the perspective of the Maiba, and we have these sorceress kind of tentacle things going up from Silver Fox to touch the table, where the legs of the table snap, and they recognize that is a card from the deck of dragons. No longer secret to anybody. They called for Quickben in the middle of this circle, and Alamander Rake wants to know more about who Quickben is. He just says, no, just a soldier coming to retrieve my captain, even though there's obviously much going on around Quickben. Now, in the next scene, and this is the scene that made me just put down the book and give a page 163 review so far. So I will, but I didn't really talk about what happens in it so much. This is when Captain Perrin, now in this other warren, sees he's in this kind of hallway, cathedral looking, at least that's the way I picture it, area. And he sees two kind of lumps, which are two people who are laying down. Going towards it, one of them is Rallick Nom, the awesome assassin who I love and I totally forgot about until this moment. He's there. It sounds like he's just been kind of laying there. He has his crossbow, I think. And the other one, it sounds like it looks like he's just sleeping. And the other one is Vorkan. And it looks like she's been beaten up and has been there. It looks like they've been there for a long time. Kind of the same situation maybe that Talk had when he was laying there for a long time. But time moves a little bit differently. And this is when Perrin recognizes he's in the Finest house. And this is when, almost at the end of this book, I am tempted to go back to the second book or even the first book and really kind of give some, to slow down and try to maybe give some analysis as far as I can understand it as well. Because there's some of the stuff with the Finest house, the Azath house, that it really went over my head, if I'm being totally honest. I read it too quickly. And then the wooden portals swing wide, and there's a jacket there. Raced, the tyrant. But he is only there, or the tyrant says that even though he's there, Perrin's there, he's there, but he's not there. He's there only in spirit. And he is going to take Perrin for this little tour, expressing that he is the master of the deck, even if Perrin doesn't want to be. And we've seen that kind of trope a million times. Not the master of the deck or basically anything like this, but kind of the hero, the chosen one that doesn't want to be a chosen one, even though, man, so cool. So cool. Perrin's got to be there by the end of this series, right? Probably some people who know this series are laughing because he's probably dead midway, like 3/4 through this book. Who knows? But I can't imagine so. Race pushes him forward, kind of metaphorically, saying, I can go no further, walk into the darkness. And if I refuse, Perrin says, then I kill you. And this is just kind of a joke, I guess. But they express here, and this is where we learn as readers, that the Azath has need of the master of a deck because there is a war that has happened, and we will talk more about that war later. But no entity will be spared. They go down into this area where on the flagstones there are carved right upon their surfaces are each of the cards in the deck of dragons. But there are cards that aren't recognized. Lost houses. Which this is where I go back and wonder, could anyone just go there? Does that mean that Perrin is kind of the one who could place people? If he wanted, he can go through these different things. I don't know if he has to he goes to this Finest house, or if he can just kind of blink into other warrens. I still don't exactly understand that, but I'm curious to see his relationship in choosing maybe the other people to occupy these forgotten thrones. And I'm super curious to see what those will be. Now, they go into this first warren, which is this hold of beasts, which sounds like it is the pre-ritual Talani Mass warren, and it has been abandoned. It's like they have this tent there. It has 2 thrones and like bones of beasts. Sounds like everyone has just gotten out of there. It was the heart of the Talani Mass power long before the first throne, long before the ritual of Talan, which was the ritual that made them so they can, go over glaciers and stuff like that, I guess. But it's been abandoned. And Perrin says, "Oh my," or he thinks, "Oh my, they've outlasted their own gods." They go into a second warren, or he goes into a second warren. And this one is, I believe, before he goes in there, it's the image of a sleeping woman. So I believe this is Byrne. Skin, not skin. As he's looking at it, he's saying skin, not skin. And he's seeing that as he looks into this very detailed card, he can see forests and he can see bedrock and he can see that even though it's her, it's the earth, right? Or it's whatever they're on. She is Byrne. She's the sleeping goddess. And he sees a dark welt. There, at the wound's heart, a humped, kneeling, broken figure, chained to Byrne's own flesh, kind of poisoning, infecting the sleeping goddess. And the sickness was coming, so she chose to sleep less than 2,000 years ago. And before doing so, her entire spirit, all its power, forged into a hammer. This blew my mind. Forged into a hammer capable of breaking anything. And Kaladin Brood holds it. Which is like, does that make Kaladin Brood almost like the high priest, protector, guardian of Byrne? I find that so cool. And we find that, he's been around for a lot longer than we thought. At least a lot longer than I thought. Breaking the chains meant freeing the crippled god. And this is I wrote a lot of notes in here, but I obviously can't go through all of it. But this blew my mind. Because what is the decision that we have here? Kaladin Brood can break the chains, thus kind of saving Byrne, and then getting rid of the sickness, but then he's gone, or the crippled god escapes, and then everyone dies. Or don't break the chains, she dies, the warren dies, he gets away, and everyone dies. So it is this no-win scenario. And what if Kaladin Brood refuses her? He is supposed to just let things play out. It's almost like everyone is a part of her warren. She's amoral, it sounds like, doesn't really care what happens, because in the end, there will be another cycle. And it sounds like this has already happened once before. It sounds like this is the thing that happened in the prologue when everyone started eating one another. And there was just another cycle. Very, very, very cool. Perrin's eyes blink open, and he's back. He's back. Everyone's looking at him. And he wonders who will ascend, perhaps, back onto those two thrones of the Talan Imas. And he wonders, where is he leading them? Or where is she leading them at this second gathering? Now, everyone's confused here. And it could all pop off. Kalar makes one more attempt, especially directing himself to Alamander Rake. That silver fox should just be destroyed right now. They don't do anything. They kind of agree that discretion and not acting too quickly is the most prudent course of action, given the circumstances of what they just saw, and also the circumstances of what they are here to discuss. And that was a wild sequence of stuff and of things. And I love that at the end of it, Kruppa says, "Is anyone else hungry?" And all eyes turn to Kruppa. Hilarious. And now, we're almost at the end of this chapter, and we get one of my very, very favorite scenes. Or are we almost at the end? Close enough. We get one of the very favorite, and it's touching. We get the Maiba, who she's given up so much. She's given up her whole youth for Silver Fox. And she is comforted. Well, Crone comes and attempts to comfort her at the very least, saying, even though that you have served others so much, I will try to help you and reverse this. There's got to be something that can be done. The Maiba screams, "She has stolen my life." And again, Corlat, another person who I've come to really love. I really love this Corlat, who's the number 2 Tistandi. And remember, the Tistandi are very different from the Rivi people in a lot of ways. But even so, like the Tistandi, sounds like they don't have much of a relationship with the dead. They're just dead. Just leave them. Let them, they don't need burial, da-da-da-da-da. Don't have the same relationship. But Corlat is kind of a lot like a Tistandi, or a lot like a Rivi at heart. It seems like she's kind of moving towards that way. And it doesn't mean she's totally changing everything about her nature as far as I can read it. But there is a little bit more of a respect, I think, that she has for the Rivi. And she really takes the Maiba under her wing as well, as best as they can manage it. And they don't want to abandon the Maiba to this fate, which I think is just awesome. Okay, next scene. And we get back to Burn, the subject of Burn dying. But this time from the perspective of Kaladin Brood and Alamander Rake. And what happens? What happens if Burn dies? And again, it kind of goes into the same sort of thing that I had mentioned, these choices that we have. And Kaladin Brood and Alamander Rake really are kind of... Really, it sounds like Alamander Rake is there not only to assist Kaladin Brood in this Panian Domin situation, but really in his kind of mantle that he has to be there for Burn. I might have that totally wrong, but let's go on. We must now speak of the Panian Domin. The Warren of Chaos lies at its heart, which is so cool because, people go crazy within this and you lose yourself. happen to Hairlock? And it sounds like you don't even have, it's not even this other area, but it just kind of oozes for wherever they go. It's this warren of chaos, this religion of chaos. Not religion, but, you know, how everything kind of has their ascendants or their gods that kind of are about that sort of realm. Chaos is the one that is, I love that. I love that. It's the one that is expressed. And even in our own history, our human history, there is this duality in so many cultures of their origin stories and things like that. It is this battle between order and chaos, this yin and yang. And chaos is so often expressed with water. And it just flows everywhere. No matter where you go, you just can't stop it. That's why when you go also to, this isn't a Bible class, but Noah's Ark is expressed with, they're within this ark that can protect them from chaos, that can't be stopped in any way. You know, they need this ark. The same with walking across the Red Sea. It is this parting of this chaotic element. And it's so interesting that here, this Panian domain is this expression of chaos. Very cool. And it is the chained one's poison that is of chaos. He's just pumping it into this. He's pumping it into the earth. And wherever the Panian domain goes, that's almost like it's kind of its expression upon the earth of chaos. Wherever they go, they leave it in its wake. Very, very, I always say very cool. I need a better thing to say than that, but it is. It is very cool. And it shows how the stakes are so high in going back to the way people were in the prologue. Now we get to the next scene with Whiskey Jack and Quick Ben and Perrin, and the wizard is studying. Quick Ben is studying Perrin, and also again expresses that he is just on the threshold of ascendancy himself, whether he likes it or not. And then this is maybe one of my very favorite parts in so far. It actually made me laugh out loud. Now, a new voice cuts in. And this is, and says, the card will not leave us. And they find Silver Fox standing there. Behind her, a dozen Rivi warriors were lifting the tabletop. And they express that it's risky having that card with them and holding that, but they're studying it or whatever. They are going to take that tabletop card with them wherever they go in this campaign. And then here's the part that makes me laugh. The rustle of armor alerted them of Calor's approach, and Whiskey Jack scowled. You are not a part of this conversation. Calor smiles. Never part of, but often the subject of. Not this time. The High King's flat gray eyes fixed on Quick Ben. You, wizard, are a hoarder of souls. I am a man who releases souls. Shall I break the chains within you? An easy thing to leave you helpless. Here's Quick Ben's response. Even easier to make a hole in the ground. And then Calor just drops out of sight into this earth that just opens up. and he clatters and is bellowing in rage. Silver Fox gasps, and they're all like, what the heck? And they can see him kind of trying to climb out. It's this tense moment, and then Quick Ben just isn't having any of it and just, drops him down into this hole, just kind of mocking him. Hilarious, but might come back to bite him. He can kind of hold a grudge. He's held a grudge for, 100,000 years? More than 100,000 years now. Return to the bridge burners, Whiskey Jack says to Perrin, and we will, if all goes well, we'll meet again in Kapistan. In parting at the end of this chapter between Quickban and Whiskey Jack, they mention the obvious, that none of this puts them at ease, especially having Calor around and Silver Fox. You know, we don't know what's going to pop off with her. Having Animander, I keep calling him Animanderake, and expressing that it's probably a good idea as a former priest of Shadow Throne if Quickban kind of keeps his distance from Animanderake especially. And yeah, there is some more that kind of goes on, that they need to do some investigating, and you know, it just kind of ends there. But very, very interesting, very wild, kind of deep chapter with a lot that goes on, and a lot will still go on in the next chapter, but it's not going to be quite as long as chapter 5. And then we get into what as much as I gushed over the first book of this, or the first part of this book, book number 2, which is entitled Hearthstone within Memories of Ice, I might even have more excitement about that. But again, I will try to make it a little bit more brief, because I can get a little bit long-winded with these chapters. But I have more of a memory of what happened, so I don't think I need to kind of go back and reread it quite so slowly with you guys, unless you enjoy that. But I found it really interesting. Really, really interesting. And I will keep doing these summaries as soon as I get a moment. Thanks.